Yeah, another backlog builder down. This time I read Jagaaaaaan, the 2017 manga that recently concluded, though the translations aren't done. Like, I was kind of hoping that I'd get to read all of it, but there's still like another volume and a half left to be translated or so. Yeah, unfortunately not gonna be able to talk about all of it. I mean, if by some miracle the entire manga is translated within the next, because I'm recording this fairly early into the month, if by like, so I'll probably there's probably gonna be a few chapters like just for transparency. The last one I read was 147. Unless the whole thing like finishes this month, before like this video would go up, I'm probably not gonna go back and change the video. Not that I have much to say about the currently ongoing final arc as far as I'm reading it. Just letting you know that if like, oh, I mentioned this thing and then, oh wait, that happened already, or no, the opposite happened. Like, that's because, I stopped at 147, relative to, when this video came out. But yeah, this manga, for spoilery thoughts, I guess, like, it took a little while to grow on me. I think it just maybe had a bad first impression in a sense where, like, because it's edgy. It is very edgy. And it's not that I dislike edgy things, but more that the way it was edgy at the start, I really didn't vibe with it at all. I remember one thing that bothered me was just a lot of the expressions were very, like, exaggerated and kind of grotesque in a way that I don't really like. That I remember feeling the same way regarding Danganronpa Killer Killer, which, infamously is, like, the manga that I dislike the most, which I'm going to reread at a certain point, but, yeah. See how that holds up. But I think, as it went on, I don't know if, like, the expressions stopped being as out there, or if I just got more accustomed to it, because, though I think there is, like, one character, like, as far as, like, edge goes, there's a lot of, like, sexual stuff, so, if you don't like seeing, a lot of that, or depictions of, rape and stuff, then, avoid, do not read, once the rapist character dies, good fucking, that, like, because I really did not like him and anything that character was up to, for the first part of the story. And then he died, and I was like, oh, cool. And I started to, it's not that I, like, started to enjoy the series more, but that was definitely, like, I feel like before that point, I was less enjoying it, and after that point, I was more enjoying it, so, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, like, the art is pretty fucking good. It's just really easy, quick to read, and it looks nice, even if I guess the art style isn't necessarily, like, quote-unquote, my thing, and, like, especially early on with the expressions, as I mentioned. But yeah, I guess to briefly describe the premise, it's basically like, there's, I was even thinking, like, this is kind of like a transforming hero thing, and then sure enough, Kamen Rider gets a reference fairly early on, and I was like, yep, there it is. But it's a dark transforming hero story, so closer to something like, Devilman or Zetman. Maybe, I haven't actually gone back to, I watched some of Zetman, and as I told myself I'd just read the manga. And that was back when Zetman aired, and to this day I have not gone back to read the manga. I've heard it's not even that good, but I haven't checked it out myself. But anyway, there's just people just transform into these monsters based on their desires. The main character, it was actually kind of fitting because the day I started reading it was also the day Cynic Clinic put out his video on Fooly Cooly, and it mentioned a concept called the Endless Everyday, which is basically sort of how, like, because Japan is a country where, like, many of the basic needs are met, and for a lot of people, like, they have this endless everyday of normal, peaceful life that they, can kind of grow tired of, in a sense. And so, like, reading the first chapter, and Jagasaki, the main character, he literally just wants to, he hates this boring endless everyday. As a police officer, he's constantly putting on these fake smiles, and he literally, like, there's a part of him that just wants to literally just shoot everything up because he wants a change to that everyday life. And he gets it in the form of, his, bad stuff happens, and he becomes a transforming monster kind of thing, like a half transformed. There's full transformed monsters, but then I think after a certain point where it starts to become more interesting, I think that's another reason why I started to change my feelings, is because the half transformed monsters were more interesting than the fully transformed monsters, because there's just more stuff going on there. and how like the general like society is responding to it at that point is more interesting. So if I don't know, so that's just my general take on like, will you enjoy reading it, or and if you don't like certain aspects about the beginning, like, well, where does it go later? Maybe that would interest you. But it's also the kind of thing that's like, if it's not your thing, I understand. Like there's a lot of sex and stuff. Like there was a part, I'm literally just like there's fucking NTR happening and blackmail and for cheating, and I'm just like, this is some fucking H manga shit. And like there is a lot of sex that it does to genitalia. Though there is definitely one instance in which a sort of biological growth that is normally used as a gun is instead used as a visually as a penis, and it's very blatant. So yeah, just warning. But I guess like, do I recommend it? Like aside from just general content warnings, I think it's pretty neat. It's it's got it's definitely got its ideas going for it. Like the conflict is kind of neat. I guess I wouldn't say I particularly really like any of the characters a lot. Like they're I'm interested in where their arcs are going and how the story is unfolding. But I don't know. I personally at least don't see this much of the series sticking with me after I read it. But maybe some later reflect like it's not over yet, or maybe I'll reread it sometime down the line and I'll be like, hey, this is cool. Like especially that beginning part, because like I said, it really, like, I was worried when I started reading it that, oh no, is this going to be the backlog builder where, someone paid me to read a series or watch something, it got voted on, which means a bunch of people were curious, or at least like, yeah, I'll hear what he has to say, and then I go, wow, this sucks, I hate it, like, when that's going to happen one day. I don't know when, but at least it wasn't Shikkan. But yeah, I'm not sure how much more I have to say, but I will move into spoilers. So yeah, I guess I wasn't as into the first arc. Like it definitely got interesting when Triple H was introduced. Just because here's these other half fractured characters being heroes, and then we sort of see how their desires are explored. And like there's the drunk guy who just wants to be with his family, and then there's the lady who wants to be an idol and stuff, and she was sexually assaulted by her dad, but she was fudging that truth to try and get more popular, and it's just a general way that the series explores the desires of the characters and sort of tests them, and their selflessness and selfishness, and where do these desires come from, why do they feel this way, and what happens when they can't get what they want, or aren't able to, or have to give it up, or whatnot. Like I said, I really did not like the rapist character, the monkey dude who was Ragu or something like that. I don't fucking remember his name. Yeah, I definitely like whatever. Like, yeah, he's just his desire was empty, and then he just fucking died, and I was like, oh, thank God, I don't have to see you again. But yeah, Jagaaaaaan, I don't have I guess like complete beat on, like generally, because he's the main character, so he's definitely kind of gone through the most as far as like having his desires tested and stuff. Because like does he he kind of wants to be a hero, and like he has some desire to help people, but that's not his like absolute desire, so he can't always bring out his powers when he needs to. Like I just more recently there was he burnt up his girlfriend's head because there was the contrast with him and Mikazuchi, who were both of them were fighting to bring the person they care about back to life. But then that was really good. I like how that was handled with Mikazuchi, where his son like, oh, you're just using me as a supplement for your own life instead of right, and which of course was reflected back on Jagaaaaaan, and he burnt up Yukino's head because he was doing the same thing to her. He's not thinking of her, what she wants, or anything, like, because their relationship wasn't the best. That's what they both turned into fractured humans, and it didn't go. That's the first thing that happens in the manga. But then without that goal, he doesn't have any desire remaining. So yeah, I guess I'm kind of curious to see where his arc ends up, because Belle still has like she even was asking herself in a recent chapter, like what is her desire? She doesn't fully know yet, and I definitely think on some level, like, she cares about Jagaaaaaan, but yeah, I'm not sure how that will end up. Oh yeah, I definitely was as far as like side characters go, because yeah, there was Ragu, I don't fucking remember his name, the monkey guy, who I didn't like. But after that happened, they introduced Airi, who, well, I mean, that wasn't his real name at the start, but, you know, I've long since forgotten. Because the first thing he does is take over Airi's body and life, and that's sort of like his normal form now. And, like, to the point that even after he absorbed someone else, he became, you know, he still was able to transform back into Airi. Like, that's basically his identity now. That was a pretty interesting arc. Like, I was definitely waiting for a while, like, okay, when is this going to intersect with, like, Jagaaaaaan? And then, you know, eventually she became his ally and stuff. But, like, that's what I was talking about earlier with the fucking Dojin shit. The fucking H manga shit. Because, like, I was like, oh, it was all happening at once at the Deaderland. And I was like, okay. And it is kind of existentially interesting, and it kind of fits with how, like Chiharu hates people who don't follow their own desires, and they're, you know, they more fit their desires to the world around them, which I think was also, you know, the conflict of Nojo, Nomen, the current main antagonist guy, where he was, you know, seeking his own internal validation, but he was so good at everything, so, you know, he was surrounded by and pushed by people who, you know, wanted to see him do well and all these things, but, you know, he never tried or anything. So he was bored with life. And, you know, so Airi kind of fits into that because, like, I don't know, I do wonder where it's like, because, you know, he wanted his own, like, his desire was to be, you know, seen by others and, you know, exist, basically, by virtue of other people. So I do wonder how that arc is going to unfold. Hopefully that made sense. And yeah, in general, I think a part of me vibes with stories that, like, explore, like, selflessness and how it can be even toxic or harmful, because I think growing up in a Christian culture, and maybe that's not even universal or exclusive to just that, you know, because America, where selflessness is seen just as, like, inherently good, but then you have, like, Hokekawan with Sanji, like the video I did on, or I've also been watching 86, which season 2 in particular has been taking a really interesting route with the Federacy, and they're just general, like, they seem to have, you know, good intentions and ideals, but when you think about it, or as we see, it kind of doesn't necessarily lead to the best results, or they're even willing to do some of the same evils they criticize other countries for doing. And you know, so, like, how, you know, like, you know, because I think, I mean, I you know, I definitely don't go as far as agreeing with the fucking, you know, Nietzsche kind of, like, or he calls selfless people egoists because, you know, they're only doing it for themselves. Because, like, you know, I do think, like, okay, well, what if you're doing something that's not for yourself? Like, you recognize it as being, like, you know, something you don't want to do, but you do it anyway. Or if it's just a good, like, if you're doing a good thing, then it really, the intent doesn't matter as much. And that's not to say, like, because in the case of Jagaaaaaan, you know, a lot of the characters aren't necessarily doing good things. Like, again, I was especially thinking about this today, catching up to the manga, with Mikazuchi and his son, because, you know, that's a selfless thing. Oh, he brought his son back to life and he's protecting him, but, you know, then he's not actually being a good father to his son, because he's only using his son as a supplement to, you know, his own desires. And right, so, like, that's not a positive selflessness, I guess. So it's critical of that, and I think that, I don't know, I generally like that sort of thing. Oh yeah, and I guess speaking of, I guess just to jump around again, in the fight between Nomen and Chiharu, I was just picking up on some things. I don't know if, like, they're going anywhere with this specifically, but it was just, like, associations I was making. Like, I thought it was interesting that Chiharu, because he made the poisonous flowers, and he said that his that the symbols, the flowers in his flower symbols, they were companionship. So I guess, like, you know, it's a toxic relationship, which makes me worry, like, see it, because I guess what I'm wondering is, like, because Nomen is, like, the main antagonist right now, because Chiharu seemed to be the main antagonist for a while, but then he ended up working with Jagaaaaaan. So I guess my question is, okay, in the last volume and a half, is Nomen just the final antagonist, or is he's going to get beaten, and then Chiharu and Jagaaaaaan are going to have their final showdown or something? You know, in which case, like, you know, there's another toxic companionship, I guess, with the flowers, which just association. I don't know if they're going that way or not. And I guess just a general, like, very broad religion thing I noticed was just how, like, because Nomen wants to absorb everyone into himself, which you'll also recognize in, say, Neon Genesis Evangelion with the LCL, the Human Instrumentality Project. So that can be associated with the idea of gnosis, which comes from Gnosticism, which basically posits that everything started as one and will eventually become one again. And so the idea that we all sort of inherently understand Gnosticism because we were all one before. And that's basically the process of gnosis. So like his idea of becoming God is merging everything into one. And I'm actually because I also just the other day heard about how the Megami Tensei franchise also discusses or uses Gnosticism a lot. So I'm kind of wondering, and I mentioned Evangelion, so I'm kind of wondering how much more of this is in Japanese media, because I only know so much about Gnosticism. But anyway, I was going to follow that with Chiharu's kind of responding to that with everyone is their own god, which is almost more of a Shinto perspective, which I don't think Shintoism is everyone is a god, but there is a god in everything. So I feel maybe I'm looking to the wrong religion, I guess, as far as everyone is a god, maybe there's something else that I don't know of. But it was just a thought I had as far as you could see things this way, but again, nothing major beyond that. I was just thinking about it, I guess. Maybe there's more beyond that. I just don't have the literacy to say more beyond that yet, and maybe I don't know. Oh yeah, and I do also like Yukimura and his stuff with Jagaaaaaan, where he wanted to kill Jagaaaaaan, but now they're basically allies, and that was cool. God, the flashback with his grandfather, that was rough. But okay, one last thing. I just looked through my notes and I realized, because for anyone who didn't notice it, because I don't think the translator did, it was around chapter 57, and where it was the end of chapter 57 and the name of chapter 58, which was called Shuach. That's a fucking Ultraman reference, and the translator I don't think noticed it, because there was just some translator notes of just what just seemed like they didn't seem to know how to translate it, but because it had to do with transformations, and obviously have fractured things, have fractured humans, it's a transforming hero story. So I was just a little bothered that it's a fucking Ultraman reference, literally one of the most important transforming heroes in Japan, and sorry, that just bugged me a little bit, and I was like, okay. But sorry for the tangents. Hopefully that was really unstructured. So I was just trying to give some general thoughts on, because I don't have any big thoughts. I obviously maybe I would have had more complete things to say if the series was finished. But we'll see what happens when it does finish. I expected it to take a few more months for the scanlations to finish. I don't mind. I'm not in a rush to finish the story. But yeah, it was pretty good. I'm surprised how much I liked it, considering I was more or less off on the wrong foot with the start of the series, but hey, that's how it goes sometimes. I'm glad that I stuck through it, which I was paid to stick through it, but that's beside the point.